This is Out Loud and Laughing. Hello, Jon. How are you?
Oh, I am present. I am here. I am trying to practice my mindfulness this evening and bringing myself into the moment. How are you?
Uh, I love that. I was only asking to be polite, but I really actually cared about introducing Kaylyn to the chat, who we're super excited to have here today. Kaylyn, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Hello, how are you doing?
Good. We're super excited to talk to you. And Jon and I have followed you on Instagram. We've seen you on X. We have just kind of followed your journey from a side actually for a little bit, and we were like, we want him on the pod.
And the newest side of like getting to hear your voice. What a handsome voice
Yes.
you have. Rubbed.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I love getting to talk about, all the ways the things I post connect and, approaching hopefully mindfulness, spirituality, learning to love yourself, all of that from maybe a slightly different perspective than a lot of people do.
I think that's what we want to dig into, right? Because I think the way you look at spirituality and sex positivity and just all these things are so interesting to us. And I would love to maybe just take a step and just talk a little bit about like that moment you felt that sense of ecstatic like freedom, and what was that moment of like the realization for you, like when all this started to come up where you were like, this feels good. This is the path I want to take, and this is something that I want to bring to other people.
I think, like for a lot of people, it begins by living in the opposite. So I grew up as somebody who is deeply, deeply afraid of myself, of my body, of my sexuality, of the world. And I learned from a young age that who I was in the world, how I showed up in second, third grade, was not welcomed. Being queer, being neurodivergent, being spiritually attuned and having awareness of like energy and things like that, and being physically awkward and gangly, like all of that was not welcomed. And so I learned at a young age, like, don't be me. People don't want you. People don't like you. They're making it very, very clear, like, you should just go unalive yourself. You're not welcomed in these spaces. And so by the time I got into my teenage years and my early 20s, I had severely disconnected from myself and genuinely thought I'd be happier being anyone else but me. I was disconnected from my sexuality. I didn't even kiss anyone until I was 25 years old. If I tried to take my shirt off in public, I would shake uncontrollably. And I legitimately didn't know who I was. I appreciate the compliment you make on my speaking voice, but even just finding my speaking voice was a journey. I remember like 22, 23, realizing like, I don't know what I actually sound like. This voice that I would speak with was manufactured to be what I thought would make it acceptable to the world. And so in my early 20s, I really began on this journey of excavation of saying, what is false and what is true? What is me and what is artifice? And how do I learn to love and accept the real me? And the one thing I will give myself credit for is I can be brave, borderline foolish of just rushing into things that make sense of how do I get rid of these inhibitions? How do I get rid of these blocks? And how do I tap into, hopefully one day, a natural state of being that is joyful and ecstatic and radiant. And so that was my quest. And that led me in many different directions. It led me into moving into an ashram for 7 years and taking a guru and severely dedicating myself to an austere yogic practice. It led me to opening up my sexuality and starting to explore social nudity, and really trying to say what's behind every door. Am I interested in kink? Am I interested in polyamory? Am I interested in nudist events? Like, what are all the doors possible that are hiding me or a part of me behind it? And over the years, I really started to grow into a spiritual philosophy that said, we are whole in our entirety, which sounds very self-referential, very like looping back on itself. But I think it's a rare idea for most people. Most people equate wholeness with something aspirational, something that they have to achieve, something that is outside of themselves. And no, really saying, no, you in your entirety, every part, your shadowy part, your shameful part, your quote unquote sinful part, your broken parts, all of that is required for wholeness and divinity, sacredness, ecstasy, joy, love, God, all of that stuff isn't out here. It is in here. And when we relentlessly and unequivocally say, I'm going to bring all of that home and I'm going to let go of the shame around it, I'm just going to embrace me totally, that's when we learn to find self-love. That's when we find joy. That's when we find real meaningful connection with other people. And I think that's a really radical idea because most people pick and choose what parts they share. They pick and choose which parts are acceptable and what are not. And I try to show up literally and figuratively naked, saying, "This is all of me," and in that I think is beauty.
You you covered so much in just that beautiful dissertation of your journey, and thank you for sharing it and trusting us with all of that. Um, and what a long journey, right? I think that's what's been so interesting for someone like myself as well, who's always sort of like seeking and searching, what sex means to me in terms of relationship and such. But, there must have been a shift for you. And so my question or my curiosity is around the beliefs that you held around your spirituality. What did you have to completely let go of in terms of your former self to step into this new purpose?
It's the appropriate answer of everything. Like
Right?
one of the things I always tell people is when you start off on a spiritual journey, you think it's all going to be rainbows and kittens and puppy dogs and it's going to be amazing, and it is going to be amazing. But what spiritual growth requires is the continual sacrifice of everything you think and everything you think you are over and over and over again. Because I like to think of ourselves as being like onions, to quote Shrek.
Yeah.
We come in layers, and the outer layer is our identity. And all of that is true for that layer. As you start to grow, as you start to go deeper, as you start to unveil and peel off the crustaceans that are hiding your inner light, a layer will fall away and you'll suddenly say, that's not who I am anymore. Those terms I used to define myself, that my outlook on the world, the kind of people I need around me, the kind of work I want to do in the world, all of it might change. And long held beliefs and very central tenets to our identity might fall away. And then you'll kind of stabilize on this new level. And if you keep growing, you're going to realize that that also is just a facade. It is just another layer. And it starts to crack and crumble and it reveals something more true and more radiant within. And we're just peeling away layer after layer. So really, it's letting go of everything. I look back at some of the things that I would write or say not even that long ago and look back at it and cringe a little bit and be like, "Oof, okay, well, I thought that then and it was true for then, but my view has expanded and it has softened." And I think that is one of the signs of real spiritual growth is when you grow in compassion and tolerance and acceptance and non-judgment for yourself and for others. It's usually a really good sign, because the more tense we are, the more blocked we are, is when we have these little things that make us upset and judgmental and angry and frustrated. And the most spiritually evolved people I know tend to be the most accepting of the way life is in its totality and to see the sacredness in all things and not just particular jobs or particular identities or particular functions. And so that's something I continuously aspire to move towards.
I love when you talk about like the judgment aspect and being non-judgmental, because I feel like you've done a really good job of merging the idea of spirituality and sexuality, right? And I think at times society can make those two different things that are almost even opposing. And so I guess what's the biggest misconception that people might have about being sex positive and spiritual at the same time?
Love this. All right. Well, a few things come up. First, probably the biggest misconception people have is because they can see me naked online and they can see me being very celebratory and sex positive, is they assume that means I'm very sexual with a lot of people, or that you can hire hire me for specific types of services, which is not true. Even though I am so body positive and sex positive, like I can count on two hands how many people I've had sex with in my entire life. For me, sex is a tremendously energetic experience, a feeling of exchange. I experience my boundaries as being extremely permeable when I'm in intimacy. And so, unless it's somebody that I feel very safe with and I have a lot of love energy with, and they have a good level of emotional hygiene, it's not a comfortable experience for me. And so, consequently, I don't play a lot with other people. Like, it's not part of my repertoire. We technically have an open relationship, my husband and I, but I extremely, extremely, extremely seldomly ever act on it because of those qualifications. So just because I'm body celebratory and sex positive does not mean I'm hooking up willy-nilly. So that's, I think, one assumption that people are pretty surprised by. I think another thing that is really challenging when people are trying to wrap their heads around spirituality and sexuality is unprogramming the notions we've gotten from our culture. And by our culture, I mean Western culture in general. Is this idea that, okay, maybe I can love my body, but still some things are just still inappropriate, or some things should be kept hidden, or some things are bad. And on my journey, I've really tried to lean into the questioning of those assumptions and really ask the question, why? Why are we assuming this? One of the things I love to go back to all the time is I grew up Christian. I grew up in a Methodist household. And I can remember going to church and on one hand being told you're made in God's image, and the other hand being told, well, if you love someone of the same gender, or if you masturbate, well, that's sinful and you're going to be punished for it. And I'm like, wait, hold on, back up a step. If I'm made in God's image, that means that my body is made in a reflection of something that has a penis and or a vagina, and then therefore potentially gets aroused and potentially experiences sexual pleasure. So if I'm made in the image of the divine, how does that then work? And precocious me, I don't remember how much I actually actively vocalized that, but no one had an answer. There was no good answer for that. And one of the things I'd love to turn to is in Eastern spirituality, of which there are many different forms of it. There still tends to be a sense of right and wrong when it comes to sex, or it's only approached in the same way. But one of the things I like to turn to is you see depictions in different Eastern spiritual traditions of the divine masculine and the divine feminine in intercourse, where you'll see Shiva and Shakti with their limbs wrapped around each other and his lingam, his phallus, inserted into her yoni or her vagina. And one of the things I love to point out is in Hindu mythology, Shiva and Shakti have two sons, but they're not biological. They're basically adopted. So if they're having sex, it's not for procreation. It's not for reproduction. They're doing it because they like it. So if we peel back all the judgment and all the modern day cultural bias we have around sexual energy, I think we start to see an older vantage that says sex is neutral. It's neither good or bad. It can be used for ill, to cause harm, to cause emotional and physical damage, but it can also be used to heal. I often say a nuclear energy is neutral. It can be used to power your homes. It can be used to destroy your home. And we hear a lot of narratives around how dangerous sexual energy is, but that's because it's often wielded by people who have a lot of trauma they've not dealt with, who are not using it consciously, not using it respectfully, not using it with kindness. And that when we approach it with reverence, with respect, with consciousness, it can be a tremendously healing energy. I know the love I've experienced and shared with my partners, my past ones previous to my husband, has made me a fundamentally more healthy and healed individual. My journey of self-love did not happen in isolation. My journey of learning to accept myself happened because of so many wonderful people who along the way helped to show me that I was deserving of love, that I was deserving of loving myself. And I can't thank my husband in particular enough for how much he's helped me on that journey.
You're really hitting home with a lot of these things. So it's really great to sort of be validated and hear it from another source. I'm pretty sure that you've read The Ethical Slut. Do you know the
Mhm.
book?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it really opened up my eyes to exactly a lot of the things you were just referencing around how we view and apply sex into our lives, and how we miss some of the ways that it can be a healing tool, which in my book and sort of like on my journey has been sort of my North Star, which is the healing journey and finding safety and healing the inner child. You've talked a lot about the body as a temple also, and moving people from, their mindset from being a source of shame and judgment to a source of divinity and joy. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like how do you apply that notion to people and how are they resonating with it?
Yeah. Well, a very fundamental tenet of my belief that I've drawn on from many, many different traditions is this idea that at our essence, we are all divine energy, that consciousness, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, Same thing. We are all manifestations of that same vibrational energy. And so that means that everything in creation is the divine incarnate. Every rock, every tree, every animal, every person. So we at our core are this luminous being. And when I look at different definitions of what is the divine, what is this divine energy, one of the ones that has really stuck with me is the divine energy is truth, bliss, and awareness. Bliss being one of our innate native qualities, and everything else are obscurations. Everything else are blocks, are veils, are layers. So when I work with people, one of the things I really try to encourage them is to say, all those lies you've been told of being a sinner or being broken or being bad, those are never your truth. There's literally nothing you could ever do to diminish your inner luminosity, to diminish the fact that you are made of God, by God, through God. And so that is true with everything else in existence. So the work is not to accumulate more knowledge or more abilities or more accolades or more initiations. The goal is to little by little let go and let go and let go and remove the things that are preventing you from revealing that inner light, that inner bliss, that inner truth, because that is who you really are. When you let go of everything that gets in your way, you are a being of bliss. You are a being of joy. You are a being of pleasure. You are a being of love.
Yes.
That is who we all really are. And anything else is just a temporary illusion that's keeping you blocked from seeing that.
It's interesting because first of all, I love everything you're
Yeah.
saying. It's like deep, it's emotional, it's intellectual. I also want to pivot a little bit because you're also an influencer now as a result of this, right? And then that's probably a job in itself. And so I'd love to understand a little bit more around like being a gay influencer and what that has meant when it comes to your practice. Are they separate or do you see them one and the same on how you kind of deliver that message through all of your social platforms?
Oh, dude, I walk into every space exactly the same way. So one of the things that I really hope is whether you've seen me on YouTube or Instagram or X or OnlyFans or Patreon, wherever you see me, it's the same message. If you come into a workshop with me or meet me in person, it's the same thing. I will say I am very grateful that I don't live in LA or New York, that I don't have to deal with the day-to-day aspects of being a quote unquote influencer. You know, where I live in DC. But I'm not in the social circles who know or care. Like there's some people run into me in the gym who recognize me from online, but I don't have to deal with all the networking and all the schmoozing bullshit. So I can basically just live my life. And as far as I know, all the numbers on social media are all bots, and it's like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And given the nature of how naked I am emotionally and physically, it also prevents me from accessing more mainstream collaborators, sites, things like that, that would, for the number of followers I have, probably normally have targeted me to do stuff at this point. And so I basically just kind of live my normal life doing my thing, and the people for whom it resonates, great. And you know, I've gotten to meet wonderful people that I've reached through these platforms. But for me, it's always just boils down to I do this for service. I do this because I feel like the journey I've gone on to try and find something really joyful and beautiful in my own heart is something that I have for a long time felt as my offering to the world and to help others on their respective journeys. And in today's landscape, the best way I can do that is through social media. Is it a perfect medium? No. Is it a medium that usually comes with a lot of baggage and a lot of assumptions and a lot of peculiarities? Yes. But one of the things I try to do is I don't pay attention to what other social media influencers are doing. I don't pay attention to what the algorithms tell me I should be doing. I just do what I feel called to do. I post what I feel called to post, even if it doesn't make sense, even if I should be doing things differently because that's what other people are doing or what the algorithms demand, and just say, I'm doing this from a place of service and offering. And so today I'm going to make a post that is meaningful to me. It's what I'm feeling called to share. It's what I'm feeling playful with. It's what is turning me on. It's what is inspiring me. It's what something I had with a conversation I had with a client or a group I was working with, and I thought it was really meaningful and I want to adapt it to a public setting. So for me, it's just, hey, this is the place for me to offer what feels right, and hopefully it's meaningful to you.
We're just absolutely thrilled to have been able to have this whole conversation with you. Before we let you run today, having this bear all mentality, is there still anything that you wouldn't post online or anything that was like kind of embarrassing to you? And before we sign off, if you can tell all of our listeners and viewers where we can find you and how we can engage with your content. It's such important work.
So I'm going to answer this in probably a much more real way than anybody ever should. And I have a
I,
long history of this.
I can't wait.
Just a little like backstory. I remember when I was in 7th grade, one of my classes, they asked us to bring in 2 photographs, one of something we were proud of and one of something that embarrassed us. And this is, I totally realized in hindsight, my neuroatypicality coming into play, because I was legit. I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to share. Even though I was horrendously bullied, I'm like, of course I'm going to share an embarrassing photo because that's just how I roll. So I remember putting up my first photo, which was the one I was proud of, which was me in a Speedo because I was on the swim team. And the entire room burst into laughter. And I remember someone shouting out, "Is that your embarrassing photo?" No. Then I put up my embarrassing photo, which was me at like 4 years old in my mom's stockings that were bright red, like pulling them up to my chest, wearing a diaper, however old I was. And I've always been willing to just say, you know what, put all my, just share it all, so that's something I really tried to do in my posts. So is there something that I would refrain from talking about, or something that embarrasses me? And I'll be real with you guys. Yeah. So a couple years ago, I made the decision to be open and honest about having an elective procedure done, where I had always wanted to have a bigger dick, that my dick wasn't already very large, but I had a procedure done to make the girth bigger. And I posted about it on social media, and people did not respond well. And to this day, I still get people making like nasty comments about it. And I've just reached the point where, after a couple of years now of dealing with that, where I just now don't respond to people because I'm like, I'm tired of talking about it. I addressed it on the YouTube video, and there's stuff you can find online if you want to. Like, the number of people who created a level of derision from it, of like, well, if you're all about self-acceptance, why would you do something like that? And, oh, you're a charlatan because you do. And I'm like, you know what? Life is about having the journey that you want to have. And if something brings you joy and it feels aligned with the person you want to be in the world, go do it. If you want to go, have cosmetic surgery and that's going to make you happy, by all means, go do it. So that's something that in hindsight, I would have probably kept private. But it's something that, it was a learning journey for me. So I share that as an offering to say, when I try to walk the walk and talk the talk around bring your whole self, bring the parts you're ashamed of, here's an offering of me doing that as well.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, the judgment out there is real, and it shouldn't, but it is what it is. How can people find you? What are you offering to people? Where can they find your services? Like, talk about yourself. Where can people find you?
Cool.
Yourself.
So I have a long catalog of videos on YouTube. I post on there for very consistently for 5 years. I don't post on there really much anymore because the algorithm changed, and because I show up so naked and talk about things, I got shadow banned. So it just became heartbreaking to try to post things on there and just not get any traction. But there's a big catalog of videos on YouTube, literally hundreds of hours. There's lots of great stuff on there. I've written 3 books. I'm working on my 4th right now, but those are available on Amazon, online. I've created an Oracle deck that can be a great resource for your own journey. And then I host workshops and retreats, mainly in DC and Vermont. They're on my website, ecstaticself.com. I do short motivational videos on Instagram and TikTok. I have my Safe for Work Twitter. I have my Not Safe for Work Twitter and Blue Sky. I have OnlyFans. I have Patreon if you want more behind the scenes and kind of like what's going on in my personal life. And it also gives you access to my OnlyFans, which is, again, more embodied sensual content about connecting with yourself in that way. And then I work with people one-on-one. So if anyone ever needs some more support, and I'd like to mention this, that if ever you feel called to connect with me and you want to attend a workshop or anything really, and you're like, I'd love to go, but the price is out of my budget, just shoot me a message, because I'm a big believer that I really do try to come from a place of service, and finances should never be the reason someone doesn't engage. So even if you're like, Kaylyn, I'd love to do one-on-one coachings with you, I can only pay you a quarter of your usual rate. Is that cool? I'll be like, yeah. So money should never be the reason, but there's literally dozens of different ways to connect. So if something's speaking to you, please engage, shoot me a DM. I try to reply to as many people as I can. And if you ever run into me in real life, please come say hello. I'm super friendly and I always love to chat.
Kaylin, this was magic. We appreciate it. You gave us such insightful information today on ways that we can move through a lot of the things that hold us back, from our mindfulness to our bodies. And we couldn't have had this conversation without you. And we're so thankful for your work.
No, my sincere pleasure. Thank you, guys.
This was Out Loud and Laughing.
We're available everywhere you get your podcasts: Spotify, Apple, YouTube, iHeart, or wherever.